Hi, I'm Sophia. This is Sophia Reviews. I review movies so you don't have to. Today I'm reviewing Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, which is the actual name. Our story begins as the camera roams around town and we hear the Beetlejuice theme from the first film. It's been remade a bit and doesn't sound quite as good, which is fitting because the film isn't quite as good as the original. We go over to the Dietz's house and zoom into the window and see Lydia moping about. She says, "Come in if you dare. The living, the dead, can they coexist? That's what we're here to find out. My name is Lydia Dietz. Welcome to the ghost house. Wait, are we playing Super Mario World? Because if you're secretly King Boo, then you have to tell me or you can't jump scare me." Joining us in the attic tonight are Emmett and Jody Welch from Claycorn, Wisconsin, along with their dog Taco. We're going to hear about how their dream house became a ghost house. I've been a psychic mediator for over 15 years, but nothing could have prepared me for what I encountered when I visited the Welch farm. Here's a preview, but be warned, it's intense. Then in the clip you hear, "I don't know what we're going to find behind this door, but it doesn't want me here." As she walks into the room, all the doors on the cupboards are slamming open and shut, and Taco is on the ceiling fan whimpering. Lydia says, "I feel a dark presence. We need to leave now." Back in the set of her TV show, Lydia asks Emmett, "Are you ready to hear about your paranormal visitors?" And me personally, I don't even like getting normal visitors. Oh sure, the delivery person brings me much needed supplies of lingerie and video games, but at what cost? A knock on the door could be a scary, scary skeleton. You never know when a skeleton's gonna come knocking. "Bring it on," Emmett says. Then Lydia asks Jody, who says, "Haven't slept a week since we moved into that darn house." Lydia says, "Conquering the unknown, confronting your fears, nothing is harder, but don't worry, I'll be right by your..." And then she hears Beetlejuice laughing at her, and she is flabbergasted. Her producer slides into frame and tells her she's doing great. The show takes a break and Lydia goes into the bathroom. Lydia and producer Rory have a conversation in the bathroom about her pill addiction, and she bounces from the studio before the episode is done filming. Easy enough to judge Lydia for flaking, but sometimes I flake on simpler tasks, such as getting out of bed. I just turn off my phone and roll over, sleeping past the whole day. Then she goes to see her mother, Delia Dietz, who's at her art exhibit. Delia tells Lydia about her dad, Charles, passing. They cut to a claymation video of Charles as his plane crashes into the ocean and a shark eats him. Normally when an actor is cancelled, he is simply written out of the sequel, but not this time. This time he dies painfully and horribly. Is it better? Worse? Probably worse. It was probably not a great idea, especially since Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis both have their characters cut, and at least one of those two have not been cancelled as well. We now see a sexy zombie lady put her body back together piece by piece. It's cool, it's sexy, it's weird. Those three words could really be used to describe her whole character, and she's mostly not a necessary part of the movie. Just one of those spooky, sexy femme fatales you put in a blockbuster sequel in an attempt at upping the ante. Men in Black 2, 302, etc. Lydia and Delia tell Lydia's daughter Astrid that Charles is dead. Lydia starts having a moment like she thinks she sees Beetlejuice, and Astrid's like, "Mom, quit being a mentally fragile psychic medium for like 1 second and pretend to be normal. Your whole deal is very embarrassing." Cut to Beetlejuice, who runs an afterlife call center. He says long-distance relationships can be difficult, especially when one of you is dead and the other's been ignoring you for 30 years. But Lydia and I, we have a definite psychic connection. I'll tell you something, she definitely saw me the last time. Cut to Wolf Jackson, who says, "Wolf Jackson, Afterlife Crime Unit." Beetlejuice says, "Let me take a wild stab. Actor. Not just any actor," Wolf says. "I've done it all for 6 movies and a reboot. I became Frank Hardballer." Frank Hardballer? That sounds like the name of a regional hot dog with sweet chili relish you can only buy at a baseball game. "Doing my own stunts was non-negotiable. You know why? Authenticity," his secretary says while handing him a cup of coffee. "Correct," Wolf says. "A vice cop doesn't get to a perp's door and then call for some ham bones stuntman to break it down. Neither did I. Is this death proof too, the squeakquel?" "You gotta keep it real," as he says this half his brain is exposed from a fatal stunt gone wrong. Beetlejuice says, "Looks like you got a little too real there, bud. But who knew it was a live grenade?" Wolf asks rhetorically. "Your name came up in this case I'm investigating." He shows Beetlejuice the picture of Dolores, and his eyes bulge out of his skull, and his tongue rolls out of his mouth in that sort of Beetlejuice, Warner Brothers cartoon logic kind of way. Then he says, "Never seen that chick before in my life or afterlife." Pretending you don't know who your ex is, that's pretty cold, even for a dead guy. The words "Beetlejuice's mine" are written in green slime on the wall, and Wolf asks, "Any idea why my suspect wrote your name in this schmo's goop?" "Hard to say, Wolf, but could have been a super fan, you know. Guys like you and me, we drive the gals crazy. She collected all her body parts. My hunch is she's out for revenge, and you seem to be numero uno on her list." "Wouldn't be the first time a woman wanted to kill me, and kinda hard to kill a dead guy. This gal can, Wolf says, she's a soul sucker. Oh, you can say that again, Beetlejuice quips. Wolf says, my advice is lay low. She's got her hands on you and you're dead. And there's no coming back from that, Mr. Juice. You know what makes me dead? No coffee. Do not talk to me before I have had my coffee in the morning. And this is a character trait entirely unique to me. I am impolite before my morning cup of coffee. Okay, the character concept of a soul-sucking undead femme fatale is cool, and they did do a good job with it. I just wonder why exactly this film needed a serious, deadly villain to raise the stakes and up the dramatic ante. I would have preferred a much more comedic take, like with the sort of stuff in the first film, which had similar stakes, but they were a much smaller part of the story, not as much of a central focus, you know? Althea was a total clown up to almost killing Adam and Barbara by accident, and the Sandworms, well, they weren't really characters, they were mostly just there in the background. At Charlie's funeral, Astrid is mad at Lydia because Richard, Astrid's father, who confusingly enough also died in an accident, is the one ghost she wants Lydia to see, and Lydia can't see him. We get into Beetlejuice's backstory now, because if there was one thing I was craving from a late sequel to Beetlejuice, it's Beetlejuice's backstory. He says, in a forgotten age, shrouded by death and plague, the tendrils of our depraved love unfurled. I was a humble grave robber, plying my trade amidst the corpses of the forgotten. My heart was long withered into the abyss, but destiny, like a phantom, cast its long shadow one cold, starless night, her name Dolores. Hey, this is like a gothed-out telenovela all of a sudden, and I kind of dig it. The moment I gazed into her cursed eyes, I was bewitched. The ceremony was traditional. We drank each other's blood, bit the head off a couple of chickens, and sacrificed a goat. Our wedding night was a symphony of carnal pleasures, a macabre opera of lust and untamed desire. But my new bride harbored a terrible secret. She was the leader of a soul-sucking death cult. Men, they always say you're the leader of a soul-sucking death cult the second you go through their text messages when they're not looking. Like a spider closing in on its prey, she was ready to strike. Her quest for immortality demanded two things, my life and my soul. He says he's into some freaky shit himself, but even he has limitations, and they show him chopping her up with an axe. Cut away to the doll of a little girl getting chopped by our narrator, Beetlejuice, who then says we parted ways. Now she's back. She's pissed. Okay, we have a serious villain up, the relatively lower stakes of the original. Seems like a good place to end the review. Except I would like to mention that there's this weird musical number at the end of the film. This is a really great callback to the dinner party in the first film. If any scene really understands what made the first film such a classic as this one, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice is my fourth favorite film of 2024. It's not the best film that came out in 2024, but it did meet my expectations, and in fact it exceeded them quite a bit. We get into Beetlejuice's backstory, because if I was craving anything from a late sequel to Beetlejuice, it was Beetlejuice's backstory. Man, they always say you're the leader of a soul-sucking death cult as soon as you go through their text messages when they're not looking. But my new bride harnessed a sinister secret. She was the leader of a soul-sucking death cult. Men, they always say you're the leader of a soul-sucking death cult as soon as you go through their cell phone messages when you're not looking.